is afraid of closeness and emotional vulnerability. And so you get into a relationship and you're like a grown woman, and you're afraid to open up to your partner. And the reason why you're afraid to open up to your partner, it may not be that your partner is someone to be afraid of. Your partner may be very caring, very loving, very receptive, very aware of your needs, very able and willing and wanting to meet your needs. But because you have this subconscious belief that your needs will not be met in relationships, you can push that partner away through deactivating strategies to create distance, because distance is what you've associated with safety. You get what I'm saying? Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about attachment style, and the reason that I'm making a video on attachment style is I want to start a series on this channel just delving into different ways that we can self-develop and different theories that help us to develop ourselves. And I feel like during this isolation period, it's the best time possible for you to invest in yourself and understand how you relate to other people in your adult life and in your adult attachment. And so let me start by explaining what attachment is and just why it's so important and why you should know about it. So attachment is basically how you emotionally attach, or how you bond with other people and how you relate to other people. And in becoming a more well-rounded person, you want to be able to relate to people in the best way possible. And part of the way you can relate to people in the best way possible is by understanding yourself, because a lot of issues in our relationships and our friendships and our family life come down to us not being self-aware and not being able to understand the way we may present ourselves to other people, and also the way other people receive us based on themselves. Because a lot of the time, the way people react to you is not really a reflection of you, but rather a reflection of their own inner world and the things that they are dealing with and the things that they believe and their core belief systems. And so let's keep that word in mind, core belief systems. That is an important word for this video. And from 0 years old to 8 years old, that's the time where your attachment style begins to solidify and form. Your attachment style is basically how you have attached to your caregiver during childhood. And so this can really affect how you, in adulthood, attach to your partners, your friendships, your family members, and just generally childhood attachment and adulthood attachment. Your childhood attachment does form a lot of your core beliefs and your internal beliefs about relationships, about love, about what you deserve, about what you can expect from other people, and about what you believe other people can give you in relationships. The psychologists Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth both contributed to attachment theory and the attachment theory we know today. So if I'm correct, I think Bowlby first developed it, and then it was later developed by Mary Ainsworth, and the ideas of like adult attachment linking to child attachment linking to adult attachment were developed by Mary Ainsworth further on from Bowlby's initial work. Attachment styles, I feel like it's very important if you're watching this video to kind of for you to know your attachment style. So I feel like that's kind of like a basis bit of homework for you to do before you watch this. But anyway, if you're watching this now, you might want to pause the video and do a quick quiz and find out what your attachment style is. There's loads of tests online that can tell you what your attachment style is, and you know, from that you can come back and see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to list the 4 attachment styles, and just to give you a little run through, a little brief about what each attachment style is, how they behave, what childhood experiences would have contributed to you having this attachment style, and yeah, basically explaining to you what you possibly could be. So if you hear a couple traits and you're thinking, oh, that sounds like me, possibly that's your attachment style. So the first attachment I'm going to begin with is the most simple one, the most easiest one to talk about, the least complex one, which is the secure attachment. So secure attachment is somebody who in childhood had a secure base, a pretty like stable environment, a pretty healthy environment. Not to say that they, you know, some people are securely attached and they didn't really, but they have the basis of a very secure and let's say stable home environment in childhood. So the securely attached person would have had a caregiver who was responsive and available. And so this means that the securely attached person sort of was able to trust that their caregiver would be there for them when they needed soothing, so they were able to soothe through their caregiver, and also their caregiver was so available that the secure person's needs were always met on time. The caregiver was able to understand their needs before they expressed them. So sometimes, like when a baby is crying, or a baby just shows a little bit of distress, or like micro expressions, the caregiver was able to detect that very early on and support the child, and basically give the child a secure basis where they felt like they were understood, cared for, loved, appreciated. A secure person has a positive view of others and a positive view of themselves, and in turn this translates in their behavior, making them quite easy to be with. These people are quite easy to be with. They're quite easy to deal with because they do not have negative assumptions. So whereas someone might be untrusting and say that, oh, you know, if their partner perhaps is late, or their partner doesn't call them back, the secure person would not jump to conclusions and think, oh my god, they haven't called me back, this could mean that they want to leave me. A secure person would immediately would be very, I don't know, a secure person would be very calm in the situation and be like, oh, you know, maybe they just forgot to call me back, you know, they're gonna call me back later. Yeah, secure, like that's the main big word here, secure. They believe that their partners, their friends, their parents have the best intent for them. They do not believe that these people have negative or ill intent behind their behavior, and in turn this results to a very balanced way of looking at life and of looking at relationships. On my list, which is anxious preoccupied. So anxious preoccupied attachment is basically somebody who scores quite highly on the scale of anxiety in relationships and of fear in relationships. They were responsive to the child's needs, however they were not always available to meet those needs for the child. And so this creates a child who looks to their caregiver for a lot of comfort, looks to their caregiver for soothing. They soothe through their caregiver, however in soothing through their caregiver, they become very dependent on their caregiver for that comfort and for that love and for that support. In adulthood, anxious attachment can be characterized by somebody who is very dependent on their partner. This person would be very dependent on their partner for comfort, reassurance, validation. They're very dependent on their partner to be there to calm them down when they are upset. They are very dependent on their partner to be able to solve their inner emotional turmoil. So when they're going through something, they believe that it's their partner's responsibility to help them through it, their partner's responsibility to encourage them, make them feel better. You could say the word clingy, but I don't like to use that word clingy. I feel like that's like is a bit negative, but they can be very dependent, and that's the word I have to use. They're very dependent on their partner as a source of love and care and comfort. When they believe that they're not getting these things from their partner, they can resort to protest behaviors. And in adulthood, in childhood, those protest behaviors may be kicking, screaming, crying, you know, but in adulthood, these display themselves more along the lines of threatening to leave their partner, trying to make their partner jealous to gain their partner's attention, because a lot of the activating strategies that anxious people have is that they will act out in order to bring their partner closer, because when they feel like as though, not even when their partner is, but when they feel as though their partner is drifting away from them, or their partner is just distancing themselves emotionally, these people get very, very, very triggered. And when they do get triggered, they resort to protest behaviors to bring their partner closer to them. And this will make them feel calm, because one thing you have to understand about the anxious preoccupied attachment, they use other people as their source of comfort and soothing, because they were never able to develop that instinct to soothe themselves. So dismissive avoidant attachment. This is somebody who has grown up in an environment where their caregiver has been both unavailable and unable to detect their needs and unable to in turn soothe them. And so they've turned to themselves as a source of comfort, as a source of soothing, as a source of just overall security. They do not trust their caregiver. They were not able to build trust with their caregiver, maybe because the caregiver was just unavailable. Maybe the caregiver was quite aggressive and cold towards the child. Maybe the caregiver just didn't pay attention to the child. They were very much neglected. So anybody who's experienced neglect in childhood, anybody who's experienced abandonment, anybody who's maybe didn't have their parents around a lot, this is somebody who has developed a dismissive avoidant attachment style. Okay, and so when we talk about dismissive avoidant attachment, these people have a negative view of others, but they have a positive view, or I could say a quite grandiose view of themselves. They see themselves as their own source of comfort and their own source of security. Because of this, these people really, really, really value independence. They value distance. They value distance. They value emotional distance from other people. They feel more secure when they are in tune with themselves and independent within themselves, and they find it very difficult to rely on their partners. They find it very difficult to look to their partners as a source of care, as a source of soothing, as a source of comfort. They do not see their partners or other people as a source of comfort. They believe that nobody can meet their needs, and so in turn they hardly ever really express their needs. They hardly express what they want in relationships. They hardly express what makes them, like, they do have these needs, by the way. These people do desire love. They do desire security. They do desire dependency. They do desire loyalty. They desire all these things that are important within relationships in adult life. However, they do not believe that they can gain these things because they have a negative view of the outside world. They do not believe that people are capable of giving these things to them because they've never got these things in the first place from their initial caregiver. These people tend to exhibit deactivating strategies, which is quite different to the attachment style of the anxious person, who will exhibit activating strategies to bring their partner closer. The dismissive person wants to push their partner away from them, because when the partner is getting too close, or when the partner is getting too involved in them emotionally, or when they feel like they're becoming too enmeshed with their partner, they feel a great sense of discomfort when their partner is too close to them. And this comes from a place of not ever experiencing that closeness. And so you can imagine that if you've never experienced that closeness and that security and just that vulnerability in the home environment, you'd be very uncomfortable to experience that later on in your adult life, in your romantic life, in your friendships. They tend to keep people away at an arm's length or even further. And I feel like that just comes from a place of never having experienced their needs being met in childhood. And because they've not experienced their needs being met by the parents, they believe that nobody else can actually really meet their needs. The fearful avoidant attachment is it's a fairly new developed attachment style. This was not part of the attachment styles before. However, it is a developed one. Over the years, it's been found that it does exist. And so I think it's like only like 4%, or I think it's like 7% of the population are this attachment style. And so you can see it's quite rare. And this is one I identify with myself. So the fearful avoidant attachment style is basically a hybrid attachment style, a mixture of that displays both anxious traits and both dismissive traits. So the fearful avoidant, or it could be called also the disorganized attachment style, comes from a child who in childhood was in an environment that was inconsistent. Inconsistent is the number one word with this attachment style: inconsistency. In turn, because they've had an inconsistent childhood, they've had parents who were unable to consistently meet their needs. So sometimes the caregiver would be able to comfort the child, and so the child does have a desire for that comfort from their caregiver, and they do believe they can have it from their caregiver. However, the caregiver may have experienced depression or alcoholism or drug abuse or just anything of that sort that made them quite unfit to care for the child, and because they were unfit to care for the child, their caring was very inconsistent. They may have looked to the child as a source of comfort and soothing, and they may have also been unable to give that child the caring and soothing that they need. They have a negative view of themselves, but they also have a negative view of others. And this is very important to understand. They have a negative view of themselves, but they also have a negative view of other people. They believe that other people cannot give them the love and the care and the security that they deserve, but they long for that from other people. It's a place of longing for intimate relationships, but also being very, very afraid of intimate relationships. So that's the best way to describe it. It's so confusing, but the best way I can put it is, come here, go away. That's the fearful, avoidant attachment style mentality. It's because in their childhood, they would have been exposed to an environment that may have been quite violent, that may have been quite inconsistent, that may have been quite just quite toxic. In adult life now, the fearful attachment style, or I'll just refer to it as the FA, just to make it a bit easier for me to say. So this attachment style is categorized by somebody being very hypervigilant. They notice literally everything. They notice the slightest mannerisms, body language, change in tone, and this just comes down to them having to live in a state of constant awareness, because they've grown up in an environment where they had to predict their caregiver's behaviors because their caregiver was so unpredictable. As a child, say you're a little baby, and your mum, for example, is depressed. Let's say that your mum is depressed and she's going through an abusive relationship with the father, and the child is her source of comfort. However, at the same time, she's not emotionally equipped to care for that child. That creates a child who has this internal belief that my parent gives me care, but my parent also can be quite scary and dangerous to me. They may have had an environment where their parents were quite abusive towards them, and so they do not trust their parent to love them, but at the same time they need their parent. So they're dependent, but at the same time they're afraid of the person who they depend on. Now that I've explained every single attachment style to you guys, I hope you go and look at what your attachment style is. So now talking about that, the reason why I feel like attachment styles is really important on this journey of self-development, when the universe gives you things, it's based on the vibration that you're giving. I believe that I attract genuine relationships. I believe that partners who come into my life want to make me happy. They want to care for me. They want to love me. They want to do good by me. You intend to attract those types of people and those types of experiences through things that I don't want to go through. People cannot be trusted. If you have those negative ideas, those negative people and those negative experience are going to be attracted to your energy. So an important thing that you have to do, having watched this video, is just reflect on your beliefs. When you enter relationships, when you meet people, what are your core belief systems? What do you believe about these people deep down on a soul level? What do you think? Do you think that these people are going to do good to me? Do you believe that you deserve kindness and love and support from your partners, or do you believe that your partners are incapable of ever giving that to you? Do you feel like you can express your needs in relationships? Do you feel like your needs will be met if you express them? Do you believe that people genuinely have the best intent towards you? And do you believe that you also can provide a source of love and a source of care to the people that you interact with? It's so crazy when you think about it that you could have been internalizing a lot of beliefs as a child, and you didn't even know that you were internalizing those beliefs, and those beliefs are the same age as they were when you developed them. The predominant emotion I'm experiencing in childhood is fear, and so I fear partners, I fear closeness, and you've experienced that fear of closeness to the point where it's like now your adulthood, your adult mind, when you enter relationships, you still have that mentality of the 3-year-old who's afraid of closeness and emotional vulnerability. And so you get into a relationship and you're like a grown woman, and you're afraid to open up to your partner. And the reason why you're afraid to open up to your partner, it may not be that your partner is is someone to be afraid of. Your partner may be very caring, very loving, very receptive, very aware of your needs, very able and willing and wanting to meet your needs, but because you have this subconscious belief that your needs will not be met in relationships, you can push that partner away through deactivating strategies to create distance, because distance is what you've associated with safety. You get what I'm saying? Target those childhood beliefs, those subconscious beliefs at a subconscious level, subconscious reprogramming of your brain, of your mind, of your emotional system, in order to have more secure relationships, in order to have more secure attachments to other people. Alright, so thank you for watching this video. I hope you've gained a lot of understanding and knowledge. This is just really basic knowledge of attachment styles. There's so much more depth that I'm going to go in the coming videos. There's so much more I'm going to talk about. I'm going to make individual videos about each of the attachment styles, so watch out for those. If you have discovered your attachment style, stay tuned and find out what the way you relate in relationships, the way that you can try to gain a more secure attachment style, and just go on this journey with me of attachment and understanding how to develop ourselves through these psychological theories that are really, really important to know.
I want you to be around for this year, next year, every year. You've been here for every